Hi, my name is Zach Freed. I'm the President of the Large Format Retail Association. Today I've got the pleasure in introducing Michael Schneider, the MD of Bunnings. Michael was appointed Managing Director of Bunnings, Australia and New Zealand in March 2016. Before joining Bunnings, Michael held a range of senior operational, commercial and human resources roles across regional and national markets, both in retail and financial services. Michael is committed to developing diverse teams that challenge the status quo and embrace innovation to drive high performance, which is critical in today's competitive retail environment. As a leader, he is known for his collaborative, genuine and honest style, and for having a real passion for the energy of the Bunnings business. This has fostered Bunnings' supportive culture, which empowers team members to take responsibility and have ownership on how the business delivers his customers a unique and compelling proposition. Now I'd like to welcome Philippa Kelly, the CEO of the Large Format Retail Association, who's going to ask Michael a number of questions. And I look forward to hearing what he has to say for our first webinar.
Thanks, Zach, for the introduction. And for those of you who don't know me, my name's Philippa Kelly. I'm the CEO of the Large Format Retail Association. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we are unable to gather together for our regular national quarterly forums. So alternatively, we've instigated a webinar series so LFRA members can remain connected. Before we start, I'd like to pay a special thank you to Andrew Marks, LFRA Director and also Director of Property and Store Development at Bunnings, for facilitating today's webinar, as well as the Bunnings Digital Learning Team. Today's webinar is being recorded and it will be available on the LFRA YouTube channel. so you can share it with your team, and we welcome your feedback. Today, we're having our first ever webinar, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Michael Schneider, Managing Director of Bunnings. Welcome,
Morning,
Mike.
How are you going?
Yeah, good. Today we're in the Bunnings studio, so it's been a fantastic experience being in here. So thanks for agreeing to spend some time with us today. And Zach gave us a brief outline of your background, and it seems that all your past roles have led to your current position. And perhaps maybe you could start by sharing with us not just what your past roles were, but also what have been the key drivers that have led you to your current role?
Yeah, it's certainly been a patchwork quilt of a career, so to speak. Started a long time ago in Sydney, working in a Target store, pushing trolleys and punching checkouts, and retail sort of got in my blood, and spent a bit of time out in financial services working with Westpac, but predominantly spent my career in retail. And I think that the drivers really are around team and customer, and I think that sort of comes through. When I joined Bunnings 15 years ago, it was what really attracted me to the business was the fact that there was such an emphasis on team. And I think anyone that sort of comes into contact with any part of our organisation, and I know for most of the people watching, it's probably through our property and store development teams, but you get that really strong sense of connectedness and engagement. And I think given what we've all been going through the COVID period, that focus on customer is also important, because never more than ever have we sort of had the relationship with our homes that we perhaps have over the last few months. We've all certainly spent more time at home. I know I've pretty much been living out of my back room, which has been converted into a study. And I think that it has been nice to see that connection, and our ability to serve those customers in different ways has been really important, and that's what, as I said, drives me.
Now, it's interesting because one of our members, he's converted his laundry into his office, so we're all working in different ways at the moment. So Bunnings is a really big business, which is part of an even bigger business, Wesfarmers. And how do you manage to be a big business yet at the same time have a local focus? And how is your connectivity with communities, kept in place? And how do you interface with them?
Yeah, I think the thing that I really love about Bunnings, and I've said this quite often, but when people talk about Bunnings or they think about Bunnings, one of the things that they most commonly talk about is the community barbecue, the sausage sizzle, and it's been nice to see those coming back online in New Zealand and around Australia, and hopefully in the months ahead into Victoria again as well. But when people talk about Bunnings, they tend to talk about their local Bunnings store, and I think that's sort of the connection. And a lot of brands, I think, when we talk about those brands, they sort of see the brand, and they see a big organisation. We see people talk about their local Bunnings store. For me, it's Fairfield or Northland, and that connection is really, really important. So I think that's very much the sort of driving force behind us. From a community point of view, it's really about, and it has been hard during COVID. It's been so hard during COVID. But if you think before COVID, what we really liked was the community could come into our stores. They ran barbecues, they did cake stalls, they did activities, community days. The big format of our stores is so important because it actually lets us do lots of different things in there, utilise the car park space for community events and things like that. So I think the stores themselves have become a community hub. And then we've got dedicated team members that actually go out into the community and do work, whether it's at aged care facilities or schools. And that's why it's been such a challenging time for us. So, we've been finding new ways to connect and engage with the community, because so many of the things that we are known for, we haven't been able to do. But as restrictions ease, it's been nice to see some of those start to come back in different parts of the market in which we operate.
So if you're going to profile a customer, a Bunnings customer, are you able to give us some sense of who that person really is?
Yeah, I think it's all of us in different ways at different times. I think Bunnings we talk often about the fact that we're a discretionary and necessity retailer, and we operate across the DIY customers, so people like all of us, and we also operate across the trade business. We've got over 700,000 small businesses and trades that we support as a B2B partner and core supplier, and our tradies probably treat Bunnings more like we would treat Coles or Woolworths, almost like a supermarket. They're in buying consumable products, nails, screws, glue, all those sorts of things on a high frequency basis. On the consumer side, it's really all about the journey that we have as we live our lives. We live at home with mum and dad, we go out and rent a first, probably a pretty crappy rundown apartment somewhere and doss in with a few friends, and then we find someone, we buy our first home, we start families, we expand our homes. So that customer journey goes all the way through, and we want to make sure we're relevant to people personalising a space, people renovating their first home on a tight budget, to people maybe who've matured a bit in life and they can afford to expand their home and do something more substantial, or potentially buy investment property. So that connection really follows the lifetime of the customer.
So, I don't know if you know the poem, but this famous Australian poem by Dorothy McKellar titled My Country mentions, I love a sunburned country, a land of sweeping plains, of ragged mountain ranges, and of droughts and flooding rains. And the poem continues on, and it also mentions for fire, flood and famine, and she pays us back threefold. Well, Dorothy McKellar got it right when she spoke of droughts, fires and floods, but she didn't have the foresight to predict a pandemic. It's
been unbelievably surreal. If you'd said to me last year, what are your plans for 2020? I'd have laid them out. They'd have involved a lot of travel. They'd have involved a lot of activities and things that I think we just took for granted. And and I think all of us as business leaders, we have contingency plans, and we've done crisis management things. We've modelled, God forbid, a roof collapsing on a Bunnings store, or fires or floods or cyclones, and we've lived through those. Like all of us in retail, and particularly large format retail, have to deal with those things based on the footprint of our stores. But pandemics, that's sort of out there in black swan event, and there's been no playbook for it, and it's been challenging to say the least for the team at Bunnings to work their way through, as it has been for all of us in the community.
So what are some of the lessons that you've learned managing through these disasters? What are the key things that you think that you can take away from them? I mean, we've had recently the worst drought, followed by the worst ever bushfires, and now global pandemic. I mean, it's the trifecta, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and not the sort of trifecta you want to win, boxed or otherwise. So I think that the learning for us has been the value of team, and we touched on, that as one of my drivers. But I think, the strength of the teamwork at Bunnings and the agility of a big organisation being able to pivot at pace. We've accelerated our investment into digital. I think probably every Australian and New Zealand has been in a Bunnings store during the pandemic because there's something at home that needs to be done, and even the most niggling little thing that you see that you can probably overlook when you're going out to the pub or the footy or out with your family and friends, you can look past. If you're staring at it every day in your home office or your kitchen or your lounge room, you want to go and fix it. And you'd see really substantial changes in Bunnings stores. We've put in physical distancing measures. People have to queue outside because we've capped the number of people in our stores. We've turned off a whole lot of things that we normally would have, our cafes, our playgrounds. A lot of those things have been turned off, obviously, the barbecue as well. So, we've learnt to be really, really agile. So key learnings are really skinny down the agenda and focus on what's been important. And through COVID, for us, it's been a few things. It's been safety and welfare of team and customer as paramount and not negotiable. And here in Victoria, right now, with all the advice that the government's giving us, we've got our Vic Metro and Mitchell Shire team and teams up around Crossroads and Campbelltown in Sydney. We're asking them to wear face masks. We want them to be as safe as they possibly can in store. But that welfare for team and customers is a priority. We see ourselves and government see us as an essential service retailer because we are providing critical products for people to maintain homes, keep their homes safe, urgent home repairs, keep those small businesses running. So our suppliers have done an amazing job keeping stock up to us because obviously we want to be there to support customers in everything they want. It's also been really important to help explain the role that business plays in the economy, but what we'd also say is the domestic supply chain. So, 48,000 team members, or just over 48,000 team members work for Bunnings across Australia and New Zealand. It's a big team. We're really privileged to be a part of an amazing group of people, but, we've also got almost as many suppliers. We've got people making paint, we've got people growing plants, we've got people milling timber. Keeping those people in jobs, happens because Bunnings is open. Keeping the tradies going is because Bunnings is open. So we've done a lot of work with government to make sure they understand the critical role business plays. And it's been interesting, we've had people approach us and say we can make sanitising stations, we can create perspex shields for your team members to keep them safe on registers and checkouts. And all of those things have actually created jobs in the community as well, because they were things that we weren't looking for before. And really the last piece has been the important role that we think the business can play in help keep Australians and New Zealanders active at home. You know, I think lockdown, as we've all experienced, and those of us living in Victoria know just how hard it is to have got some almost privileges back to be able to go out and do things with friends and family. And now we're back for all the right reasons at home more, so we can try and, you know, bring the caseload numbers of COVID down. But that can be pretty depressing, it can be pretty hard, it can be pretty isolating and lonely. And I think having productive things to do around the home, or having the inspiration, and you talked about the LFRA YouTube channel, Bunnings has got one and there's thousands of videos on there, but it's helping keep people active and positive at home, because that's a really important thing. So the mental health piece for our team and for the community has been something we've been really focused on as well.
Yeah, it's amazing how we've all had to pivot, not just what we do at work, but at home. It certainly changed. Everyone's got a story to tell.
Oh, absolutely.
And Bunnings, along with many publicly listed large format retail businesses, has advised the ASX of strong sales during COVID-19. It certainly probably didn't feel like that back at the beginning, mid-March, but many sales were due to the nesting phenomenon. So just as you mentioned, people doing things around their home. And they're also reactionary due to government restrictions. So, you know, if the gym's closed, people were buying gym equipment, etc. And we've had less entertainment and travel options. In fact, some people even received refunds on planned overseas holidays, and their refunds were substantially more because when they received the return of their deposit, there was a shift in the exchange rate. So what do you think that the future holds for Bunnings and retail more generally? And what do you think will be the key drivers moving forward?
It's a really good question, Philippa. You're right on the nesting phase. We saw sort of a couple of key things. We saw people panic buy cleaning products, face masks, things like that when the unknown was there. We then saw the setup of home offices and home classrooms. And then it's moved more into sort of activities, as I said, to stay active. What's hard to sort of forecast is what the year ahead looks like. The economy is really uncertain. I'd hate to be an economist at the moment, and I can only imagine the pressure on government to sort of contemplate what needs to be done to continue to stimulate the economy. And I think governments around the country and in New Zealand should be applauded and recognised for the pragmatism and speed of putting a hand out to people that are in industries where they perhaps haven't had the benefit. If you're working in a pub or a restaurant or a movie theatre, it must be incredibly challenging to try and think about how you get your business back. So it'll be really interesting to see sort of come September the changes in many parts of Australia when JobKeeper winds up. I think that's going to be a really interesting turning point, and I think it'll be really important to understand what government can do to stimulate growth in other areas. I know certainly for our sector, you know, improving the way that planning is done to sort of speed up processes to bring big projects to market. They create jobs in the construction, but also the services sector that comes off that. So it is going to be really interesting, and I think all of us are sort of looking at the year ahead kind of going, haven't really got the crystal ball super clear at the moment on what it's going to look like. And I think that for Bunnings as a retailer, you know, I think for others that sort of play in the home improvement space, because we work in a dynamic and competitive market. There's plenty of other people doing what we do, whether as specialists or generalists, but it will be interesting to see the connection that we continue to have with our homes. And I think that's going to be the real key for retail businesses, is how have consumer patterns changed? Because this has been a sustained change. You know, it's not been, we all locked down for 4 weeks, like, for example, happened in New Zealand, and life's pretty much gone back to normal. But all around Australia, the sort of changes are still there. You know, physical distancing is still very much a reality in Queensland and WA, even though those restrictions have eased. So that's gone on long enough now for behavioural patterns to take effect. And I wonder whether or not we will view trips to the movies or, you know, the football the way we perhaps once did. I think there's a desire to get back to it. I know the game that's being played in Perth tonight, it's got 20 or 30,000 people going. Living in Victoria at the moment, that seems so surreal, but you know, it's only half capacity of the stadium over at Optus Stadium. So it does show you that patterns of behaviour will change. So the answer is, I don't know, but I'm really curious to see how it plays out.
Certainly it's going to be very interesting to see how governments move forward, as you said, and the LFRA has been discussing the planning issues with both the Productivity Commission and also the COVID National Coordination Commission. So we're hoping that those issues, there's more of a light shone on those issues, and certainly it's encouraging to hear the Prime Minister talking about those concerns last week.
Absolutely,
so,
yeah.
So I noticed that a lot of people are talking about click and collect. So there's been a massive increase across the large format retail sector in click and collect, and due to the desire for contactless transactions and convenience. And I understand you've got drive and collect. So could you tell us a little bit about the drive and collect service that you've put in place and the feedback that you've received about it?
Yeah, I think customers clearly have responded to online. I think if a sample group of one, Philippa, I sit at my desk all day and something pops in your inbox, you think, oh, that looks interesting, I can buy that. And that convenience of online has certainly improved, I think, for all of us. Bunnings was probably a little bit later to the party on online for all the right reasons, I think, when you look back at sort of how our website evolved since 2008. And we now have click and collect, as you say, drive and collect and the delivery options. Drive and collect for us is very much around contactless engagement for customers with the brand. So it's the convenience of click and collect and the speed of click and collect without the need to go into the store and have contracts. So for older customers, for people who maybe are immunosuppressed or in a vulnerable sort of category, that ability to get your products quickly and have it put in your car without the need to go into the Bunnings store is important. But for me, the physical environment of retail is absolutely critical, and it's at the heart of everything we do. I touched on the role of the warehouse as part of the community, and our plans going forward are to continue to open stores. It's not the 15 or 20 that we had a few years back, but it's in that sort of 5 to 10 space that we've called out, and that's really because we've got this incredible across Australia and New Zealand, heading towards sort of 380 trading locations. We've got a lot of presence, but there's still enormous opportunity for us to continue to grow into new markets and also to regenerate and improve. A lot of people that are watching this would have seen what we did at Caringbah in Sydney. We took an old hardware house business that we acquired in 2001, or a whole hardware house site, I should say, knocked it over, opened up a little store to sort of take some of the load off our Kirrawee warehouse for a few months and built a powerhouse store. So I think the opportunity to renew our sites and to go into new markets is really exciting. I know that Andrew and his team just do incredible work in that space and help take the business forward. We've got a parent company that wants to invest in us. We've got strong return on capital. We'll announce results in August, and we'll be able to show sort of some of the sort of changes in our ROC profile. But there's a really high desire to continue to invest in the built environment and to regenerate and improve the built environment, because it is such an important part of what we do. Online just adds to that. It lets customers shop at times of the day where the store isn't open and in a way that is potentially more convenient at different points in time. But that sort of wow effect of when you walk into a great big Bunnings warehouse is something that we want to continue to invest in.
I think through COVID-19 we've certainly a greater awareness of spatial needs, and some of the key drivers of the large format retail sector has definitely been the large car parking facilities and the ease of access, the large stores that enable social distancing. So those key things all tie into very much what you've been articulating.
You're 100% right. If I look at our big warehouses, Alexandria in Sydney or Castle Hill or Maribyrnong here in Victoria, even Hoppers Crossing, giant warehouses. If you applied a strict one person per 4 square metre rule, we could have many, many more people shopping in our stores than we're currently allowing in. We're being so disciplined and so careful with the number of people in our stores. We've got applications that actually track and monitor so that we can see from our support centre or from working from home how many people are in stores right around the country at different times, because we want to make sure that we do the very best we can to keep people safe. But I do think large format retail has an enormous natural advantage because of the space available. And you're right, the outdoor car parks and things like that, you just feel more comfortable, in a big box retailer than you necessarily do in some of the smaller retailers and even some of the smaller secondary shopping centres as well, where you just feel you're a little bit crowded for space, even though people are doing their best to sort of manage the physical distancing.
I must say, I was very impressed. I was at your Nunawading store not so long ago, and it was very clear the steps that you'd taken and implemented in relation to social distancing, etc. It was something to behold, really.
Yeah, we've had really positive feedback from government, from health, from police in all jurisdictions on the measures and controls, and I think that's, it's so important that we walk the talk when it comes to what we say we want to do and what we want to achieve. And I think that's a really important thing, because it does go to the trust and the connection we want to have with customers as we go through this period.
So the safety, we've been talking a little bit about it, including the health and well-being of your team, not just the customers, but also your team is obviously crucial. And so what do you think are some of the key steps that you've taken to manage this important issue?
Yeah, the first one was actually to listen to the team. So we run a social media platform, enterprise social media platform called Workplace. So it's owned by Facebook, and many on this webinar might be familiar with it, but it allows us to engage directly with the team. So we're able to tell and talk to the team and explain what we're doing to keep them safe, and also listen. So a lot of the things that you'd have seen at Nunawading, or you'd see at Box Hill or any of the warehouses in that area, are all the measures in the store. A lot of those actually came from the team. So it's been really fantastic. But we've obviously capped the number of customers in store. We've got multiple times a day the store's being cleaned. We're cleaning trolleys and baskets and things all the time. Obviously Victorian team at the moment in face masks. We've got the trestle tables around counters to help manage the physical space. We put new queuing systems in for paint. We put new queuing systems in outside the store. We've got a unique way of bringing the community barbecue back to life when we do that in the markets where we've been allowed to. And obviously, right down to badges on our team members' apron saying, hey, just remember the 1.5 metre distance, capping customer numbers. It's an endless list. We've really thought through that very, very well. And we've really empowered our teams to have the ability to have the conversation with customers if they choose not to. And it is the vast minority of customers. It's the 0.1% who don't want to do the right thing. And you get that in the community. Some people are terrified by what's going on. Some people are just going, this can't happen to me, I'm bulletproof. And we get that in our stores, as I'm sure all other retailers do. So, our leaders are empowered to sort of say, hey, if you're not prepared to play by the rules, out you go. And I think that's been really important for our team to feel safe. And we've invited experts in. We've invited here in Victoria the Department of Health and Human Services in to walk through our processes, make suggestions for improvement. And we've been active in sharing, and we're very happy to share our thinking with others. It doesn't come cheap. Our parent, when I was talking about some of the upticks in numbers a couple of months ago, also called out the fact that there's millions of dollars of costs going in with extra equipment, extra cleaning, extra security guards, all these sorts of things, because that focus is there, and we want to invest in that and continue to do so.
You're 100% right. There are additional costs in delivering that safe environment, but it's just, you need to do it. And
I think it's the ticket to the game at the moment. If you want to trade and you're not taking safety and well-being seriously, then I think what's gone on in Sydney recently with the sort of lifting in COVID cases there demonstrates just how quickly and easily this virus transmits. So it underscores why safety and well-being are so important.
Yeah, no, it's very contagious, and we're all feeling it.
Yeah.
So I'd be really interested if I could play a bit of a word response time with you. So if I gave you the first word being choice, what comes to mind when you think about choice?
I think it's all about convenience, and I think for retail it's all about competition and the ability to get what you want where you want it. So
I say the word convenience, what does that mean?
I think convenience is all about access, and I think in our space, large format retailers actually have that because it's easy to get in, it's easy to get out, it's easy to park. That's that's a real competitive advantage and something we focus on, as you know, at Bunnings pretty hard.
Yeah, so, okay, here's the last one. Agility. What do you think of the word agility? What comes to mind?
I think it's the ability to change at pace. And, you know, organisations, you know, everyone talks about being agile these days. I think as we've gone through COVID, that's really tested us all, you know, and I think that's where I touched on at the start. You've got to pare down your agenda and go, what's really important? And that's why we settled on those 4 things, because that allowed us to go, right, that's what we're going to focus on, and everything else we're just going to put pause. It's important, but we'll get back to it. And that allowed us to sort of work through the agenda really, really quickly. And, you know, things that we said, you know, couldn't happen. Our CAD designers or our payroll teams working from home, they're all doing it. The physical changes we put in our store, we had those in within a matter of days. You know, big companies and governments tend to have layers of bureaucracy. Agility means cutting through that really quickly and getting a good outcome. So
what influence do you think data science and analytics have on the Bunnings business and your strategic agenda?
Yeah, it's an area that we've invested in heavily. We noted at our half-year results, the investment that we're making, or full-year results and half-year results, the investment we're making in capability centre in Bangalore and India, and obviously with everything with COVID, that's on hold. We'll come back to that. We are committed to that, but it'll inform our thinking on a whole range of things. It'll inform our thinking on, you know, what customers are buying and at what times of the year and in what locations, and I think we'll learn a lot to make our range more local and more relevant. I think it'll inform our thinking on how we can expand our range and potentially where we can find a sort of a natural avenue for growth in that area. I think it will really help us understand our network over time in terms of types of stores, locations, those sorts of things, because there's lots of different elements you can bring into your thinking. I think we've got a very sophisticated process and a very disciplined process for planning our stores out 3, 4, 5 years in advance, but analytics will help to that. And I think as well, it'll help us look at opportunities within our business to reshape the design of the organisation so we can be even more customer focused, invest more time or more hours into our stores to serve customers better by eliminating either unnecessary process or task in other parts of the business.
So, not so long ago, Bunnings, you launched your online offer under the banner of Marketplace.
Yep.
Noticed Kitchen Warehouse, one of the LFRA members, is part of that Marketplace, which is great. And could you tell us a little bit about Marketplace and how Marketplace is tracking for you?
Yeah, look, MarketLink is our marketplace. It's fully integrated with the Bunnings website. So if you're buying products from Kitchen Warehouse, you're buying them on the Bunnings website. You could add them to the same transaction as buying hammers and nails and screws and glue from Bunnings. It's a really convenient offer. And what we've sought to do is partner with trusted businesses to provide a wider array of product to customers for things to do inside their home. They're associated with the home, but they're not in categories where we would see ourselves wanting to play. So we don't see ourselves having the competencies that they would have to sell those products. So we define our ranging lens as everything from the front fence or front gate of the property to the back fence of the property. But it's more the sort of, excuse me, the permanent sort of fixtures. So things like bedding, the gym equipment. We've got a few gym equipment providers on MarketLink as well. So we certainly saw that uptick as people couldn't get to the gym. It really is about enhancing convenience and making sure that customers can get, you know, everything for the home, hopefully as best they can in a one-stop shop.
I think the timing of introducing the Marketplace, given COVID, was impeccable.
Yeah, I think the decision to really accelerate our whole digital agenda couldn't have come at a better time. In New Zealand, with the really hard lockdown, you know, consumers couldn't shop for anything pretty much other than sort of groceries and pharmacy products for quite a few weeks. And then when lockdown light came along, it was an only online offer. And, you know, we were able to bring forward our online aspirations in New Zealand by 6 months to be able to do that. And that meant we had the opportunity to play. And I think, you know, if there were more significant restrictions in Australia through the previous few months, having had that online offer would have been a really important area of insulation and protection for the business to be able to continue to trade through that time. And as we touched on earlier, Philippa, I think the sort of lift in online will only get greater over the years ahead, and it's how great retailers will make that anytime, anywhere, all channel offer really work that will be the key to success.
Yeah, so it's delivering to the customer a seamless offer.
100%.
Yeah, so what influence or involvement does your website have on purchases made in Bunnings. So what is Bunnings' actual digital fingerprint?
It's a significant one. I think our website is something like the third or fourth most visited retail website in Australia, pretty much behind Amazon and eBay. And during the sort of critical months of the pandemic, that sort of April-May period, we were seeing 30 plus million hits a month on the website. What we see is customers mostly are researching product or project online. Most of the shopping clearly done, our online sales, would be up hundreds of percent, but it's on a very low base, and percentages never really tell a good story. So it's a very small fraction of our overall transaction. So it's clear customers want to shop in the built environment. I think that's what customers are saying to us very clearly. And often when they're buying product online, it's to secure critical products. So, heating, face masks, sanitizer, things like that, making sure that when they come to Bunnings, they're definitely going to get that and there's no risk of missing out. And then after the purchase, it's going to that YouTube channel, going back to the website to learn, a bit about how to apply the product or how to do something. So we just see it as a broad digital ecosystem in which customers want to participate.
It certainly is a key part of the overall retail offer. I mean, the information education components are critical to
Absolutely.
That seamless retail
Yep.
offer. So you recently purchased Adelaide Tools.
Yep.
And what was the reason behind that? Because you've got a tool section within the Bunnings. And
great tool shop, great tool suppliers. What we know is that in the trade categories that we operate in, specialist retail can go a lot further. It either offers brands or service that we don't think we can execute at Bunnings. So what we didn't do was buy Adelaide Tools to integrate it into Bunnings. So the Peach family have run a really successful business, Adelaide Tools and Oakland Mowers in South Australia. It's just a handful of stores, but a really well-run family business over the last 50 years, and really understand the industry, they understand the brands really want to participate in there. So what we want to now do over the next sort of 3 to 6 months is finish off the deep learning of what a specialist tool market looks like, and then we'll accelerate into a growth strategy that actually takes a specialist trade business around Australia and potentially into New Zealand. Probably won't be called Adelaide Tools outside of Adelaide. I think there's always a danger of sort of comparisons between cities and towns and things like that, and Sydney Tools do a great job in their network, as to Total Tools. But we think we can bring a lot more competition to the market, and we're interested in other categories, hard surfaces, plumbing, electrical. They're all areas where on the trade side we have very low market share, and that's what interests us about how we can bring more competition, bring more value into those areas, and they'll run as standalone businesses if we acquire anything else, as we will with Adelaide Tools.
Okay, so I had a look at the Bunnings website recently, and something that really grabbed my attention, and probably I wasn't fully aware, was the vast array of installation services that you've got on offer. Everything from hot water to TV, antenna installations, a total of 26, I had to count them up, 26 installation services. And is increasing or having these installation services as part, is it part of your growth strategy?
It's an important part of our overall customer convenience strategy, Philippa. I think we don't want to compete with our trade customer. That's the most important thing. So we don't want to have a Bunnings installation business. We don't think we'd add value to the market. We don't think we'd be price competitive, and I think it brings a lot of complexity. But we do know in some specialist areas, hot water, air conditioning, aerial installation, the things that you've touched on, they're often quite hard for customers to be able to get done, and sometimes they're a small job that a trade may not want to do. So by providing sort of a guaranteed service, we can offer that. We also have partnered with hipages to connect trades and consumer customers. So some of these, like toilet installation, believe it or not, it's actually a very DIY-able project. I think most of us will look at it and say, not really for me, and I'm not really game to take it on. But again, it's a small job for a plumber, and quite often plumbers aren't interested in it. But with hipages, we are able to work on an agreed fixed price, and they effectively have a database of plumbers and other trades that are able to do those jobs, and they can actually go to that and connect those trades with the customer and provide that service. So I think we'll grow beyond the sort of 20 odd that we've got at the moment, but it will be in a very curated way to sort of really complement our overall service offer.
So seeing that you and I are here on our own and no one's listening, no one at all, Could you share a little bit about your vision for Bunnings' agenda going forward?
Yeah, it's an exciting time. You know, I know we're going through a heap of challenges, but we're really focused on growth, and it's growth. You know, to pinch a basketball term, it's a full court press. You know, we want to continue to grow the physical environment. We want to accelerate our digital aspirations. You know, we really want to grow. You know, we've talked publicly about our aspiration to grow the trade side of the business over the next decade or so to sort of be of an equivalent size and scale to the consumer side of the business, and it's been doing a great job over the last decade. But you know, for me, the sort of way I think about it is, you know, I'm not sure what Bunnings will be in 10 or 20 years' time, but the thing that we really focus hard on is wanting to make sure that the trust in the brand, the reputation and regard the brand has is maintained. So it's about making sure that the offer we have continues to be relevant. And you know, if 10 years ago people didn't buy smart door locks and home cameras, they almost didn't exist, so home security cameras, you know, they're now a really important part of our offer. So our offer will continue to evolve, and we just want to make sure that it's the right offer at the right time, at the right price for customers. We want to continue to invest in our team. It is such an important part. You know, we're so privileged to be part of this big, you know, we call it a red army, but it's really, you know, a group of people who are just amazing, you know, and just the other day I was signing off on a letter for one of our team members, you know, celebrating 50 years service with the business, and it's a place where people really want to put down roots and grow and build a successful career, and we want to invest in that. We want to do things through, you know, LFRA and government and anywhere else that we can do to sort of build trust in what we're doing, and people see that, you know, Bunnings isn't trying to be some big corporate entity that's sort of straight from big corporate central casting doing, you know, bad things to people or whatever. So everything we do is designed to build trust, and if we do those things, then 10 or 20 years from now, you know, we'll have a successful business. We'll have a business that's trusted and well regarded, and really that's my vision for the business.
I've certainly appreciated the nimble nature of Bunnings and the ability for it to pivot with, you know, in the marketplace. It's certainly been something that everybody should aspire to be like. So we went, and before this session, we asked all our members if they like to ask you some questions.
Great.
And we've received a few questions from David Mark from Burgess Rawson. And David's a director of Burgess Rawson, and Burgess Rawson have been a long-standing Gold Associate member. And the first question David put forward was, has Click and Collect forced a change in merchandising, that is moving common extra items, you know, most sold items, closer to the collection point?
No, it hasn't, and thanks for the question, David. I think we haven't changed the merchandising assortment. What we've had to do, and if you've seen our stores, is you'll see we've created a dedicated area at the front of the store. We did research to work out where customers wanted the Click and Collect point to be. We tried our special orders desk, we tried close to the back of the store, and unsurprisingly, I guess in hindsight, you know, being close to the front is important. And what we've done is use the opportunity to create our home automation space around that. So it's one of our newer categories, so customers coming in collecting product can see a new category. But we do certainly see a really high degree of cross-shop in the store, and we've said that in the past as well, that, you know, as I touched on before, quite often customers are securing the core part of a project. That's what they're coming in to collect, and then they go off and shop the rest of the store. So it hasn't forced any change in our thinking.
So he's asked a few questions. So the next one is, does the take-up of the online offer mean that some stores might actually be too big? And has the take-up of online forced a rethink of an ideal store size in new markets? I mean, this is something that definitely retailers through COVID are going to be looking at, whether they're the right size.
Well, I think those that know the Bunnings business can see the quality of work the property team do in this space. You know, I think we're, you know, I sort of use the term format agnostic. You know, we have big stores where we can get a big store and the market supports us, and we've got some, you know, really cleverly built stores that are right size for smaller markets. You think about our Forbes store in Western New South Wales. I think about our Wangaratta store in regional Victoria. You know, Swan Hill. You know, we look at population, we look at market, and that helps our thinking on size. If I think about some of our larger warehouses, you know, the Alexandrias, the Maribyrnongs, Hoppers Crossings, a new Midland warehouse, you know, they're actually real opportunities for us to expand range. So Phil Bishop, who's our new merchandise director, who's been with us about a year now, he's got some really well-developed thoughts on how to use space more effectively, and we're taking our product suppliers on a really exciting journey to say that, you know, once we get to a certain size store, we should be able to range even more. So I'm excited by the bigger stores because I think they'll be able to showcase a wider variety of products, and then for stores that can't stock that, the website will play a really important role.
So who would have thought that we'd be having panic buying to do with toilet paper through COVID-19? And is there any sign of like the effects on sales? So for example, have a lot of consumers already bought everything they need for home improvement in the first wave of COVID-19? Or do you think that, you know, what's your perspective? I mean, once they've for example, painted the walls, that's it.
Anyone that starts, that looks at a wall and thinks, I want to paint that, usually starts and goes, I wish I hadn't started painting it, right? Like it's a nice job when it's finished and you get a really nice sense of achievement, but on the way through it can be a bit of a challenge. It's a great question, and we don't know the answer. And I think, you know, we're curious to know whether or not we've seen sales pull forward. You touched on the fact that people are doing really different things with their time. You know, there's been either discretionary income because, you know, people have had their JobKeeper payments, or they've not been able to travel, or they've accessed superannuation. Yeah, it's going to be really intriguing to see what the next 12 months look like, because it will inform our thinking on that. But I do think that we've changed the relationship. We've fundamentally changed the relationship we have with our homes. You know, government has asked us to stay at home, and obviously in Victoria we're being asked to stay at home a bit longer. But I think we're now safer at home. I think we've invested more in our homes over the last few months. So I think that there will be more desire to entertain at home because we know who's in our home, we know we can control that environment. So it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, as a sample size of one, I'm never short of another project to do at home. So at the moment it's finishing off a home gym. I've got a young son who's an apprentice carpenter. He put the walls up and put the plaster up, and my job's to sort of finish it off and paint it. But you know, that comes on the back of work in the garden. It comes on the back of, you know, work around the kitchen, work around the bathroom. So I do think for a lot of us there'll be more to do. There's always a to-do list, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
So we spoke a little bit about the fact that Victoria's or Melbourne is certainly, you know, got a heightened level of concern to do with COVID-19. And are you concerned about forced closures happening in Victoria?
There's certainly a lot of speculation, and you really have to follow the government advice. I think governments have been really good at following medical advice. I think my greatest frustration, if I was really honest at the moment, Philippa, is probably with the media and the way that this has been characterised. It's not nice living in Victoria and hearing our fellow Victorians, you know, referred to in a negative way by media and commentators in other jurisdictions. And you can see from the last few days in New South Wales how quickly you can go from sort of winner to not so great, you know, with the spread of the virus. But the decisions that have been made in Victoria, clearly disappointing to be back where we are, and I don't think anyone's celebrating that, but it's clear that it's necessary because it's so contagious. But yeah, it's a tough one. But I do think that the media is playing quite a challenging role here in terms of scaring people. There may be a little bit of value in people feeling frightened because you don't go out and do something, but I also think that it's being over dramatised a little bit. But we'll watch with interest. You know, we're very clear and work very closely with government on the essential nature of so many of our products. But you know, at the end of the day, we have to trust that the people we elect to govern us will make the decisions for our overall welfare. So that's what we'll watch and see.
Yeah, so we've lost the football to Queensland. I wonder what's going to happen in the Melbourne Cup, and let's hope we're nice and safe by the time tennis turns up in January.
You know, well, being at the tennis this year, or being at the races last year, or some of the football finals, I think the lesson for all of us is we just take things for granted. And I think, you know, none of our generation, or those that are sort of, you know, of our kids or family members, you know, remember any of the sort of things that perhaps grandparents talked about with depressions and Second World War, and even the Second World War. You know, as people went and fought and very sadly and heroically lost their lives defending the country, everyone was able to come together in Australia and do things, and you could be together. This is sort of pushing people away. So it's such a unique experience, and you know, it's very sobering, but it is a reminder of when we do get the things back that we know and cherish, we'll I think appreciate them a lot more.
So thanks, Mike, for your time today and for sharing your insights. It's greatly appreciated, and I'm confident that the LFRA members will get a lot out of hearing what you've had to say today. Bunnings is truly an iconic, successful business with an inspiring leadership team, and we'll be sending a survey out to LFRA members to seek feedback on topics of interest and who they'd like to hear from for future webinars. So until next time, stay safe, practice social distancing, wash your hands and download the COVID Safe app.